Are you trying to figure out what comms is best for you when you're out on the trail? Well, stick around and let's talk about it. Hey everybody, Tim here with Overlanding for Fun and amateur radio operator, November Whiskey 9 Foxtrot. All too often we look to social media for solutions to problems that we are facing. And sometimes we find good answers, but in many cases, what you will find are people just telling you what to do, but rarely do they tell you why you should do it. My intent for this video is to start a conversation by giving you an overview of a few of the common radio services that are available and walk you through each one to help you make a decision that is right for you. I am going to try to keep this video as non-technical as much as possible, but this will be the first of many videos regarding wireless communications where I can go into a much more deeper level. If you're wanting more information on a specific type of radio, please leave me a message in the comment section below. After I have covered all the radio services, I will let you know which ones I use and why. To get started, I'd like to point out that the different radio services, along with some of the rules and regulations that I am discussing, are in reference to the United States and the Federal Communications Commission. If you live outside the United States, you will need to reference the rules and regulations for your country's governing body for wireless communications. A couple things I'd like for you to think about as we go over the different radio services is what is your primary objective for using a radio? For example, is it emergency communications, talk with other parties, or to coordinate events? What would be some important things for you, such as ease of use, portability, cost, and honestly, what are other people using? The first radio service I'd like to cover is CB, or Citizens Band Radio. Citizens Band Radio began in 1945, originally in the 460 megahertz or UHF or ultra-high frequency band. By the late 1950s, due to technology of the time, it was determined that UHF radios were impractical and not affordable for the average consumer. The FCC allotted 23 channels in the 27 megahertz or high frequency band for use with CB. Due to the popularity of CB radio in the early 70s, it found its way into popular movies and TV shows like Smokey and the Bandit, Breaker Breaker, Convoy, and The Dukes of Hazzard. Because CB radio became so popular, in 1977, the FCC expanded the 23 channels to 40 channels, and by 1983, the FCC dropped the licensing requirement altogether. Today, because of other forms of communication, CB radio has lost its original appeal, but is still popular with travelers and truck drivers across the United States. Channel 9 was designated as the emergency channel, and even today you can still find a number of groups that monitor the channel and help stranded motorists out. The famous or infamous Channel 19 is still very active and used nationwide with truck drivers and travelers for upcoming road conditions, traffic jams, and yes, that hidden Smokey up ahead. Now here comes some non-technical stuff, so bear with me. CB radios come in a base or mobile footprint that runs off 12 volts DC, and could be permanently mounted in your vehicle. There are also what is known as HTs, handy-talkies, handhelds, walkie-talkie styled CB radios, which uses a rechargeable battery that gives you the flexibility to move it from vehicle to vehicle or take it with you while hiking. CB radios max out at 4 watts output power regardless of the type of radio. CBs up until recently were only AM, but the FCC has authorized the use of FM. New radios with the FM capabilities are slowly finding their way into the marketplace. One downfall with AM is it is very susceptible to static crashes from nearby lightning when thunderstorms are in the area. Since 27 megahertz is in the HF or high frequency range, the radio waves tend not to follow the curvature of the earth, and during certain times of the year, they will bounce off the atmosphere. This makes it possible to get interference from other stations several states away. CB radio is still very active for off-roading groups, but is being quickly replaced by some newer services that I will talk about next. The next type of radio service, or actually two radio services that I'm going to discuss, is FRS, which is the Family Radio Service, and GMRS, which is General Mobile Radio Service. These two services transmit using FM and share a common set of frequencies, but have some different rules and regulations. In the mid-1990s, Radio Shack proposed to the FCC a new low-cost, low-powered, unlicensed alternative radio service for family and personal use. By the end of the 90s, the FCC had authorized the Family Radio Service using inexpensive, low-powered handheld radios with fixed antennas in the 460 megahertz or UHF ultra-high frequency band. Also in that frequency space was GMRS, the predecessor to the original CB service of the 50s. GMRS was created as a licensed mixed-use personal and business radio service. Unlike FRS, the radios came in handheld, mobile, and base station footprints. Because of the ability to use radios other than handhelds with externally mounted antennas and more power, the effective range of communication became much greater. Moving forward in 2017, the FCC standardized the 22 channels between the two services, with each service having specific power limits. Channels 1 through 7, the maximum output power for FRS is 2 watts and 5 watts for GMRS. On channels 8 through 14, both FRS and GMRS are limited to a maximum power output of a half a watt, and on channels 15 through 22, the maximum output power for FRS is 2 watts and 50 watts for GMRS. In addition to the channels that GMRS and FRS share, GMRS users are also allowed to use repeaters. Now, a repeater is a strategically located transmitter and receiver combination that will listen for traffic on one frequency and retransmit that traffic on another. You will find repeater antennas mounted on the top of tall buildings or located on commercial antenna towers. By raising the height of the antenna and using higher powered transmitters, you can double or triple the effective range that you can communicate with other stations. Additionally, repeaters come in handy if you are in an area where the effective range of your signal may be reduced by buildings or geographical features that prevent the line of sight transmission. You typically find repeaters prominently in use with amateur radio, but you're starting to see them in use more with GMRS, and the number is growing every year. I will put a link in the description below for a couple resources to find GMRS repeaters in your area. So here comes some more technical, non-technical stuff. FRS is an unlicensed radio service. FRS radios are small, low-powered handheld radios with fixed-mounted antennas. FRS radios are fairly inexpensive and available both online and in retail stores. GMRS radios are available commonly in handheld and mobile footprints that allow you the use of externally mounted antennas to increase the transmission and reception. GMRS is a licensed service that cost, as of April 2022, $35 for a 10-year license. This license covers all adults and minors living in the household. GMRS does not require a knowledge test to be passed as a requirement for licensing. The final service I would like to cover is amateur radio, or ham radio as it's nicknamed. Unlike other services that we've covered in this video, amateur radio is made up of several different frequency bands throughout the radio spectrum that come with their own rules and procedures. Amateur radio has a couple bands that are commonly available in the same physical radio. The 2-meter band, 144 to 148 megahertz in the VHF portion of the radio frequency spectrum, and the 70 centimeter band, 420 megahertz to 450 megahertz in the UHF portion of the radio frequency spectrum. Both bands, like GMRS and FRS, are primarily line of sight. Out-of-the-box radios transmit with up to 50 watts, but with amateur radio, the rule is that you only use the power required to carry out the desired communication. Like GMRS and FRS, you can use FM, but you can also use other forms of digital transmission if the sending and receiving radios support that specific transmission type. Unlike GMRS, amateur radio has a well-established network of repeaters throughout the United States and other countries. Unlike the GMRS license that covers the entire family and does not require a knowledge test, amateur radio requires a knowledge test and has 3 different levels of licensing with different levels of privileges. In order to use that portion of the amateur radio service discussed in this video, you would need to pass a 35-question knowledge test and obtain a technician's license. Now, the amateur radio license only covers the individual operator. As a licensed operator, you can allow other users to transmit under your license, but you must be present and are responsible for everything that goes over the air from your equipment. Amateur radio is a licensed service that, as of 2022, costs $35 for a 10-year license. Going back to the things that I told you to think about at the beginning of this video, I am going to rate what I think are the best to worst in a couple of key areas. Cost of equipment. Now, all the radios cost about the same price for the same style of radio. Now, where you see the differences between manufacturers. FRS radios are the cheapest among all of them, with CB and GMRS tied for second, with amateur radio in third place. Ease of use. I think it's a tie between CB radio and GMRS and FRS, with the amateur radio coming in third. Both CB and GMRS FRS are channelized services where there is a channel number assigned to a specific frequency, and in amateur radio, you're allowed to transmit within a range of frequencies. Barriers to entry. I think CB and FRS are the easiest with no license required. GMRS with a license but no knowledge test is a second, and amateur radio with both a license and a knowledge test would come in third. Now, emergency communications. This is a hard one to answer because it would depend on the situation that exists at the moment. One of the core components of amateur radio is emergency communications. If you were broke down on the side of the interstate and you needed assistance, you would most likely have a better chance of connecting with somebody on CB or amateur radio. At the end of the day, if you're upside down in a ditch, you're going to use whatever's available to try to contact help. And the final point is, what is everybody else using? I think it's a toss-up between CB and GMRS, FRS, with GMRS and FRS growing in popularity. I think the big benefit with FRS is that you can keep a pair of inexpensive radios with you to let somebody borrow if needed. As for me, I hold both an amateur radio license and a GMRS license. For trial use, I would recommend the GMRS FRS for the flexibility that it gives users and groups. I have had an amateur radio license for a long time now, and I use it with many aspects of the hobby other than local person-to-person communication. I do feel that there is a place for it in off-roading and overlanding situations that I will discuss in a later video. As stated before, this video was intended to be an overview of the different radio services and to start a conversation. Please let me know in the comment section below what service or services you are most interested in, and I will use that as a guide for the next video in the series. If you're already using one of these services, drop me a comment below and let me know which one it is and why you chose it. As always, have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you on the trail. Tim out.